Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. This is our last workshop of the year. We do have one more master teaching series that we'll be presenting on Wednesday. But these have all just been so fantastic. Everything that the ITRC does is just amazing quality and so helpful. And so it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Lisa Kidder and Mark Cooper from our Instructional Technology Resource Center. And I will turn the floor over to them.
Okay, thank you, Doug. All right, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today on this beautiful afternoon and choosing to spend the next hour indoors. We really appreciate it. So welcome to our presentation, which is looks really do matter. We're going to talk about visual design in your online courses today. And go. And just a little bit, we're going to do a little bit of introduction for ourselves. I'm Mark Cooper. I've joined the ITRC in 2017, and I have about 21 years of experience in instructional design, which kind of cut off there. So I bring knowledge of instructional design and scalable training systems, visual design, and I'm also a peer reviewer with Quality Matters.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Kidder. I joined the ITRC in 2008. And I focus on learner-centered learning, that accessibility piece, basically bridging tech with teaching, and then really focus on that learner experience. So my dissertation actually focused on the visual design of a course. So this ties right in. So.
All right, let's get started. So I wanted to revisit this image because it does tell a pretty good story about what visual design can do. And so the question I want, or the statement I want to pose is, when a student opens up an ISU Canvas course and they don't know where to look, or they don't even know where to start, that's when visual design falls short. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about some strategies that you can go into, you can use going into your course to see, am I projecting a good visual design? Does this make sense for my learners? And so some of the learning goals for today, we're going to talk about how clarity and navigation are impacted by the visual design of your course, and how you can apply that across your entire Canvas course. So it's not just one aspect. We're going to talk about multiple aspects, how having a consistent design helps with navigation, but that also helps with student engagement. And then we're going to talk about some design principles for making your content clean and consistent. And that's really what we're looking for. Later on, we'll talk about a tool that you can use that can kind of bump that up a little bit and make it look a little bit more visually appealing. But ultimately, we want to focus on core principles of clean, consistent design. And so a little bit of a diagnostic here, and I know this might be a little bit challenging to see, but you see on the left and on the right, two different examples. And the first one is your wall of text. And a little bit hard to kind of follow. There's no white space in between. It's just, a wall of text. And that's what I'm calling my lecture on the Battle of Gettysburg. Which one do you prefer, A or B? I know that's a loaded question for this one, at least.
Definitely B.
If you said B, you are right. And you could see how I took that wall of text and I broke it up, created some white space, some bullet points, a little bit of consistency in the titles and kind of a flow. And, and that makes it a little bit more visually appealing, but also makes it a little bit more approachable for students. And kind of the same thing, I wanted to do it from a module level. So on now here you have two, and you might look at this and go, well, that looks a little bit familiar, or it looks kind of the same. But which one of these would you prefer if you were a learner going into a course? And if you said B, you would be right, but not necessarily A is wrong. As you can see with the A example, things do kind of follow a consistent title approach. We got the week set up, but the one on the right is a little bit more visually appealing, but also a little bit more organized. And so learners going into module 1 know exactly where they can start. With the overview module, and then they ease into the lectures, and I have the lectures consistently titled. There's a video, and the video tells you how long it's going to be. And these are just some good design principles. It's not saying one's right, one's wrong. It's just this, this makes it a little bit more approachable for the learner.
So when we look at visual design, what do we really mean by that? And so there's 3 kinds of components here. There's the layout on the screen. There's the actual structure underneath. The layout and the structure should match in terms of things. That's sometimes where you get a disconnect. And it's about introducing visuals. And visuals could be anything from the bold on a header, because that changes the visual impact of it. And it could be icons. It could be a line underneath a header or a divider. So anything that contributes to that basically is not the text is visual. White space would be visual as well. And so pulling these 3 things together, we want to make sure that they support the content. When this is good, they fade into the background and you can focus on the content. So some things about this and why it matters is it reduces cognitive load. You want your students, we're talking Canvas, you want them to go in and you want them to work on their math. You want them to work on posting in their discussion. You want them to dig deeper into digital literacy. You don't want them to say, where the heck am I going? And, oh, wait, here's a notification from Amazon. I left something in my cart. And, they're gone. You want to pull them in. You want to support them in their focus. So in terms of web design, you may have seen the letter F or the letter Z, and that's how we read a website. There's research done on that. So if you have something in the bottom right, it's the last thing to be seen. So what we look for when you open up your screen, pay attention to what you look for. And you will start, us as English readers, we'll start on the top left corner. That's where we start. Our eyes will then be drawn to whatever is the largest on the screen. And so this doesn't mean that you need to make things large and things, but just really paying attention to where your eye goes without effort. So that's where that reduces the cognitive load, improves the focus. And when the students are engaged in the content and not thinking about what should I be doing or where do I need to go or should I click this button or that button, that they're more focused and engaged in the course. So here's some principles. Consistency. So as you think about your course and you work through your course, anything that you create should have a consistent, predictable structure. We kind of set you up in Canvas for that. We gave you a navigation menu and we put that into the course. And as you design your pages and your discussions and your assignments and all of those, there should be consistency on what information is included on those. So when I open up a page, I should immediately know that it's a discussion or an assignment based on what you have put in there, not necessarily Canvas icons or things like that. Canvas icons help, and there's words at the top that help with that, but you being that consistent structure. Hierarchy, we talked about that with the F and the Z. Alignment, so making sure that if you think about reading a page and it switches between center aligned and left aligned and justified, your eye doesn't know where to go. And so being consistent in those choices. White space allows your brain to digest what it just pulled in. So it allows you to take and focus on the words and go, okay, here's a resting spot for my brain before I go into the next. There is also kind of you could have really intense and deep content and adding white space to it, they will think that it is less intimidating, even though it's the exact same content. So just adding white space reduces the perception of the difficulty, which is kind of interesting. Contrast, this is like black and white, but also like comparing, and simplicity. Don't overdo it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should add pink headers in a theme that has black and orange. So, all right, we're going to look at an example here. Here's another wall of text. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to really think about the structure. So go on to the next screen, we're going to add some structure. And in this case, we just made bold. We just bolded those headings. That's all we did. That's just a simple thing, but better still, you should add headings. So that's the next slide. Headings and the theme constructs within Canvas automatically add space for you. So when you use the styles that work with the theme, that is keeping things consistent and you don't have to think. So if you, at the top of your page, you put the title up there, you highlight the next thing, that's going to be a header 2. The title of your page is always 1. And the next one is header 2. It will automatically use the theme that will work within. So the heading styles also, for an accessibility plug here, make it easier for those using assistive technologies. So there is an accessibility feature in there. If you don't like the way something looks, let us know. We do have some things in control, and we are looking at the style of our theme in Canvas, and we appreciate feedback on that. So headings, these have been tagged. They went a little bit bigger. Oh, the next one, white space. They will automatically add the white space in there. So notice how they stand out even more. And notice if you go think back to that first wall of text, you're like, oh, wait, I think I can read this. I have not changed the size of the font. You might have said there's some ellipses at the end. I cut off some of the paragraphs so it fit in, but it's like, oh, wait, I can read this. This is okay. Now, to take it up a level, we're going to add in, go ahead, highlights, contrast, and we're going to simplify. Now, this comes down to you as the instructor in terms of what do you want people to focus on when you're designing a page. So each of the paragraphs in this section were also about visual design, which is why I chose it. And they gave some things that were connected to research, and then they gave some recommendations. So I just took the paragraph out and I just pulled this out so it's more readable. It also tells the reader, I want you to pay attention to the research-based findings related to fonts and colors, and I want you to implement the font recommendations and the color recommendations. I didn't have to tell you that. The design told you that in terms of focusing on that. Notice I kept just the one quote from Gibbons in that first paragraph. And in terms of this content, you have to do this to everything? No. You have to make a decision on what is most important for your readers, for your learners, and what they need. But anything that you can do to highlight, contrast, and simplify the examples, non-examples, this works because of this doesn't work because of this. Those are good things to introduce into learning. You'll notice I also maximized more of the page space, and there's still enough white space in there. So as you think about the things that you are designing in Canvas, let's go to the next slide. Always use heading. That's the accessibility hat on. Walls of text. Go ahead and write your walls of text, but then do what we just did. Where can I add structure? Where can I add white space? Does it need to be in prose, or can I make a bulleted list? Be predictable. So notice at the beginning, then when we got to that one, there was that one quote, and then I was consistent. It said color. There was a short definition, 3 bullet points, and then the recommendations and bullet points. And there was a consistency in the way that I did that. Also with labels, we chunked things into sections. Add the white space on purpose, not just because. So you can don't add extra returns, but but sometimes, people add extra returns just to add the white space, but keep everything in. It's like, no, let's be purposeful and intentional. So white space can come in with heading structures. It will come in that way. But where can I pull in a list of things or split it? Mark's going to show some examples where, notice I went to 2 columns on that last page. I split it up rather than just making one long thing. Some accessibility things, make links descriptive. Don't use click here. The best thing to do is to describe what it is and where they're going. Think about that too as you name your files. That's a bonus tip. So, English 1102, outline structure, be specific in terms of that. And then you can add visual anchors, bullet points, icons, call out boxes. Mark's going to talk a little bit about that too. And as you think about this in your Canvas course, a lot of you pages, okay, we do the pages, but there's other places where you can bring these in as well. So go ahead to the next page. Mark showed the modules, making sure that your modules are kind of consistent, that module look, if you have that as your home page. Pages, have your pages have a similar look. Find a great look and then copy it and then change it for the next, things like that. Assignments, make sure your assignments are consistent too. Here's the instructions, here's the grading information, here's the tips and tricks, here's links to a good example and a not so good example. And all the assignments have that same structure. Quizzes. In Canvas, be careful what you put in the description because it shows up on every single page while they're taking a quiz. So in the description on quizzes, but be consistent. What do they need? But just know that that page shows up every single time on every click that they do through your quiz. So keep that one short. If you need more instructions, create a page beforehand that talks about your quizzes, and then you can reuse that page. Think about your discussions and how those are formatted. And announcements. A lot of times we approach announcements like an email, which it is, but there's some really cool things you can do in Canvas to make it more of an exciting entrance into your email rather than a wall of text. So think about different places. As we talk about different visual designs, pick one. Start with one. You'll find some consistency and then you'll start copying yourself and replicating things, but don't do all of these things. So as you look to implement these things, focus on one thing first and get that one really good. You will by nature mimic what you find is working on your other pages by default, but just focus on one rather than all of the things.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about DesignPLUS, and you may or may not be familiar with DesignPLUS. If you go into your Canvas course and you click on Edit, you'll see this box that suddenly comes out of the right side of your screen. And what that is that's the interface for DesignPLUS. Now, before we go into talking a little bit about that, this is kind of like the next step. So DesignPLUS works on chunking out your content. But if your content isn't chunked out, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So we recommend going through the steps that Lisa said. If you start with a wall of text, you break it up, then you put headers, and then, and so by doing that, you're structuring. And so if you want to boost the visual design, then you could use the DesignPLUS, which is a really great tool. It doesn't require you to know any HTML or any kind of coding on the back end because it does all that for you. And so you can add structure to your page without needing to know how to code. There are templates in there. You can also build consistent pages that are clean. And then you also have the ability to add like engaging elements like buttons if you want them to be able to click and go to another page, or add things like tabs or accordion type structures. And I'll show you that in a couple examples that I have. But bottom line is it allows you to provide consistent formatting across your course. And so this is what it looks like. You'll see if you go to a Canvas screen, once you click on edit there, I think you have the choice that you could set it up so that it automatically pops out, or you could say that's annoying, I'm going to turn that off, and then you just have this orange little rocket button. But this just gives you an idea. If you've ever seen this and you go, what the heck is that? That's what it is. It's DesignPLUS. And once you get used to the interface of it, it's a really powerful tool. If you want to learn and you think that this might be a little bit, always come up to, contact the ITRC. We're happy to sit down and help you with it. I know the first time I went through this, it felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. But then once I got the hang of things, now I'm much better at using this to kind of bump up the visual design of my pages. And so this is an example of a page, 2 pages actually. The one on the left this is for an accessibility training, and it's just a little sneak preview because this is a training that'll be assigned out to all of our faculty and staff. But you can see that I chunked out the pages. I added visual line dividers that also separate the sections. And then this one on the left, I use the accordion. So what that accordion is that when you click on one of the bars, it produces additional, a box of additional text that's hidden. And so what that's good for, if you find that you have a page and this page just scrolls on to eternity, you can think about adding something like this, which kind of provides, it kind of scrunches it up a little bit. And then a key thing to remember, anytime that you have students clicking on something, whether it's one click or multiple clicks in a course, they're engaging in it. And that's critical because that keeps them engaged, and it keeps them, it helps with the learning process. And so that's what I would recommend. If your page is too long, you might want to consider an accordion. At the bottom, this is actually the launch page of this course. So at the bottom, you can see where I have a button that says Get Started, and that takes you into the course. So I changed the entire visual design of the course. I don't have it going into the modules page. I created a home page, and I made that my home page. And so the course functions like an ebook. So you click the button, it goes into the course, you get pages, and then you use the next and the previous buttons to go through. You never go back to the module screen. I like that a little bit better. It suited my purpose for this training course, which is a little bit smaller than an academic course. But you might find, a different, and there's no one specific way to design your course. It's more just a preference. On the right, I did I did some more chunking and dividing with the dividers, and these are all elements. The dividers are all elements that are in the DesignPLUS. The header that I used on these, I created those. Those are just images. I created those in a Word document, and then I just kind of did the cut and paste item that's in your Word. I'm blanking on that. The snip tool, and that created a nice image that I just put in there. And so again, going back to the accessibility, if you do have images in your course, you want to consider using alt text because that will describe the image to individuals who have visual impairments. And so that's just a little bit of a help with that. But you'll see down at on the right-hand side, I also included a cool little interaction that's called flashcards. And so that's also in the DesignPLUS. And I found that like once I found where I wanted to put that on the screen, it was pretty easy to set it up. And everything I was able to do in that little side box. But what it is students can click on those gray boxes. So it has a front page, and they click on it, and it switches to another page. I don't have the example here to be able to show it, but like that, the front page is like kind of the title page of the flashcard. The back page has bullet points. So those are just some ways that I boosted up the visual design of the course page. And over here, I also did it for my discussion prompts and for my my quiz instructions. So on the left, this is the discussion prompt. You see at the top under the title, that's where I had the instructions. But then I added where that orange button is, that's a tab feature. And so in my discussion, I gave them 2 prompts, and I said, you can choose between one or the other. And that was just a way of kind of saving space as I put it into a tab. So they can click on prompt 1 or prompt 2, and it will switch over for them to be able to choose. And then with the quiz instructions, I just wanted some visual appeal. So I put that black header at the top with the Bengal logo. And like I said, that's just an image that I created in a Word document, and then I just used the snipping tool to make it into an image, and I pasted it right into my course. So those are just some ways, and this is a Canvas. It's the new quiz interaction, and so there are some ways that you can make it visually appealing in the instructions, and there's some ways within the quiz questions that you can also add those as well. So just some parting thoughts on the visual design is that, these are just some words of wisdom that I found. These are not Mark quotes, but every second that students spend navigating your course is a second that they're not learning. They're being distracted, and your design should guide their attention, not compete for it. And if everything stands out, nothing stands out. So if you have a full paragraph of header 1 large text because you really want them to focus on this paragraph, that is actually counterproductive to what you want to do, to what you're trying to do.
And you should never do that.
And you should never do that because that is using a header as a paragraph, and that's confusing if you're using a screen reader. Clear structure beats out clever design. So if you think, and I am guilty of this, I love good design. I love like looking at something and going, that looks really visually appealing. And I tend to geek out on it, which I kind of did with some of those examples there. But so I had to kind of tone it down a little bit because I think like, the visual, I think in visual ways. But just remember that the clear structure that we were showing earlier in the presentation, where we just chunked the text and used headers, like that's, that is, I think is good enough. You can use that into that DesignPLUS tool to kind of boost things, but if you're just using clear, clean, consistent structure in your page, you are doing beyond well. And then the goal is to not make it look better, it's to make it work for everybody. And so that's where we tie in the accessibility part of it, because if your content is not able to be used by all students, it's hurting the learning process. And so you always want to make sure that your page, your instructions, everything follows accessibility. If you have any questions about accessibility, we did a presentation a couple weeks ago on using an accessibility checker that's also built into Canvas that can help with that. And we also talked about just different techniques for making your content accessible. So that's what we have today, and we can open it up for questions.
I'll jump in and add too. There's a recording on the center site too of a previous workshop that went in to DesignPLUS with more of the hands-on And if it's something that you're interested in, CD Labs, who is the vendor for that, they also do webinars every month that will focus in on one thing. So if you want more information on that or added to that list, just email us and we can send you the link to that. Either the center presentation that went deep, Mark and Lori, Rick and Lori did that one.
Yeah, I think Rick and Kathy
Okay.
may have done the InDesign one where they went in and showed how to use it. And then Lori also and I, we did the accessibility checker called You Do It, which will check all of your content to make sure that everything's accessible. It'll identify and flag things or not, and you can go in and fix it. And so that's another really good tool. And if you want to learn more about that, just contact the ITRC. Yeah, but any questions you want to ask while we're here? All right, doesn't sound like it. So Spencer?
They were suggesting maybe that students don't use Canvas like normal, right? So there's less emphasis on the the course, right? And so there's more emphasis on the pages and stuff. So I think with your example, you have included like labels for different parts of your like units, the weekly layout. Because I've been told that students just click in and go to page to page with this free navigation. I went away from using those labels. Is that still recommended though? I mean, I get your example.
And Mark, I dropped the ball. I forgot to turn on the other microphone. So could you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, sure. And so Spencer, you were saying, is there a preferred method as in terms of having the course open up into the modules page versus you creating a home page and then kind of directing students through? Is that what you?
My question is more about I used to use labels on like week 1.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Within the week, there were labels like read or do or take or complete or it's kind of navigation points. But is it still recommended to have that kind of those labels kind of? I mean, maybe they're called something different, but do you want to go after that?
Sure. I think I know.
So yeah, the module example from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to, it depends.
Yeah.
So what's the flow of your course? So a student coming into your course, if they're going to land on the module page, then these text headers are helpful. But if you move over to a home page, which more people are moving that way, then they're less important. But in a 16-week course, they're going to end up on the module page. And there's ways to also add in Canvas on how tracking your progress and where you left off type of things. So if you're using any of those pieces, then yeah, the module page comes in. So it's like, okay, which tools are you using to point to different things? And so at this point, I would actually recommend focusing on building your pages that you use and your assignments, discussions, and moving those into consistency. The text headers it's not necessarily worth your time. It'd be more important to notice how just on here in A and B, it says lecture 1, but then over in B, it says lecture 1, but it also says the title. Okay, so that is better than just lecture 1.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put something in, spend time adding the titles to your lectures or being more like quiz 1. Quiz 1 is about the this causes of the Civil War. And, oh, we're gonna do some primary source analysis type thing. So getting those headings on those titles is more important than whether it's divided by learn and practice and apply.
Yeah. The example that I showed with the accessibility training, I intentionally wanted it to read like a book or like an ebook. So at no point can the people taking the training go to the modules. In fact, I took it out and made it invisible on that left-hand side. So it just kind of forces the user to go, into the course through the button, and then next, all the way through. And that was intentional design on my part, because that's what I wanted. Like when I think of a training course, like you take cybersecurity, same thing. It just goes through page. And I wanted the Canvas course to function like that. And that, like I said, that was an intentional decision on my part, but that may not work for your course. You might think, okay, I want to use the module page because I want that to be kind of like the table of contents for my course. And that's where having those labels breaks things out to the learner and shows them, in this section is where we're going to start, and this section is where we're going to learn things, then we're going to practice and apply it. So it's really, there's no one way is the preferred way. It's really your preferred way and how you want to design, how you want to deliver the content in your course. But it's a really,
It's really best, system, set things up.
Yeah, consistency is where I would
Yeah.
start.
yeah.
So, if it's called homework, don't change to assignments for this week.
Or if you do week and then number one, you want to make sure that you use the numbers in all the weeks. Because I've seen that in some other courses where it's just like you get down and it's like week, 2 and it's TWO, but it's inconsistent from what's up here. So yeah, that could be confusing to the learner, or they might just, understand it, but it's always good to be consistent in how you present your material. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark, the design tool in Canvas, where do you find that? I did.
You have to edit something.
It's not the little pop up right, and it
Gotcha.
doesn't pop up immediately. Off the top right,
Okay.
little spaceship.
Look for the spaceship.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if you do find yourself using it consistently, there is a way to have it automatically pop up for you. So rather than just the little rocket ship slider thing that pops out.
Gonna pose a question to the group, and you've used DesignPLUS, but has anybody else tried using it or used it in anything?
Cindy's been playing with
Cindy,
the
okay.
accordions.
And my first, I actually used the accordion. So I have a help page that has kind of things in it. So the design parts of these accordions, so they can click on the exact, I want to learn more about this once it pops up, and that video that it's associated with. So it's more of a, here's all the help for it. So I use the accordion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then my whole page actually uses the module overview. So it actually will go by date, and actually will highlight the module we're on. So the landing page is showing intentionally, here's what we're doing this week.
Mhm.
And my structures, I have it separate by class, so they can be consistently what's in the class. So it's kind of moving them through the course as we go through that course as well. So
Cool. I kind of did something similar to your approach with that in my training course, because I wanted to incorporate some universal design for learning and multiple ways of engaging the content. So I used the tab. And so one tab is like you can listen to an audio. The other tab is you could just read it, the content. And then the third tab is you could just go straight to the key points. So I wanted to give the user, the learner, that choice, but it's all the same content. It's just how you approach it.
I love that you've found some of the things like you add elements. Basically, you're in DesignPLUS and you add elements, And one of the ones that Sam was talking about is the modules. And so it will list your modules. You'll say, add a module list, and it will do that for you. You don't have to type it all out and make the links work. And it will highlight. You can also look at adding progress bars and things like that, that you don't have to code or design. It's I'm picking this thing and I want it right here on the page. Which it's a learning curve to get to using it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and they continue to add new things to it. Every time I go in there, there's always something a little bit different that I like. Great. Well, again, thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate you taking this hour out to be with us today. And Trent and Charles, thank you so much for joining us remotely.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So cool. I wish these tools had been there when I was reading brand new classes.
Yes, yes.
Years ago.
Yeah, it took them a while to get it out and stuff, but
One last question. This is visual design, it's layout structure and
visuals,
Yeah, visuals. Using like
yeah, that's kind of counterintuitive on that third point. But anything that's not words. And text formatting is